London. The year is 1888. Thick fog hangs over the narrow streets of Whitechapel. As night falls, fear spreads through one of the poorest areas of Victorian London. A mysterious killer is stalking the streets. No one knows his name. No one knows where he will strike next. More than 135 years later, despite countless investigations, books, documentaries and modern forensic studies, his identity has never been proven. He became known by one name: Jack the Ripper. This is the full story of one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Before we begin, if you enjoy true crime documentaries, historical mysteries and unsolved cases from around the world, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you carefully researched documentaries that uncover the world's most fascinating mysteries. To understand the mystery of Jack the Ripper, we first have to understand Whitechapel. In 1888, Whitechapel, located in London's East End, was one of the poorest and most overcrowded neighbourhoods in Britain. Thousands of people lived in cramped lodging houses, where entire families often shared a single room. For many, finding enough food or work each day was a constant struggle. The streets were busy from dawn until late at night. Horse-drawn carriages rattled over wet cobblestones, market traders called out to customers, and factory workers hurried through the narrow alleyways. Yet behind this constant activity was a community living in difficult conditions. As darkness fell, Whitechapel became a very different place. Gas lamps provided only small pools of light, leaving long stretches of the streets hidden in shadow. Many alleyways were poorly lit, making it easy for someone to disappear into the darkness within seconds. Crime was a regular concern. Theft, violence, and disorder were common, and the Metropolitan Police had limited resources. Officers patrolled on foot, but with so many narrow streets and crowded buildings, it was impossible to watch every corner. These conditions created an environment where fear could spread quickly. Residents locked their doors earlier, people avoided walking alone after dark, and rumors traveled through the neighborhood almost as fast as the news itself. Then, in the autumn of 1888, a series of brutal crimes transformed Whitechapel forever. A mysterious killer began targeting women in the area, leaving behind a trail of fear that would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. The world would soon know him by a name that has never been forgotten: Jack the Ripper. As the investigation unfolded, police and newspapers began to realize these were not isolated crimes. Fear spread rapidly across Whitechapel, and the entire city was on edge. Historians generally associate 5 women with the series of killings most commonly linked to Jack the Ripper. They are often referred to as the canonical 5. While there is broad agreement about these cases, some researchers continue to debate whether all 5 were committed by the same person. The first was Mary Ann Nichols, whose death in late August 1888 marked the beginning of the terrifying series. Just over a week later, Annie Chapman was found dead, increasing public fear and placing enormous pressure on the police to identify the person responsible. Then came Elizabeth Stride. On the same night, another woman, Catherine Eddowes, was also killed. The 2 incidents became known as the double event, intensifying panic across London. Finally, in November 1888, Mary Jane Kelly was found dead in her room. Her case is widely regarded as the last of the canonical 5 and remains one of the most discussed parts of the investigation. With each new crime, anxiety spread through Whitechapel. Newspapers carried dramatic headlines, crowds gathered to discuss rumors, and many people were afraid to walk the streets after dark. Every woman returning home alone wondered if she might be next. Police officers increased their patrols, investigators followed every lead they could find, and the pressure to catch the killer grew stronger with each passing day. But despite all their efforts, the mystery only deepened. The killer continued to evade capture, leaving behind more questions than answers. By the autumn of 1888, the Whitechapel murders had become one of the biggest criminal investigations in British history. The Metropolitan Police faced enormous pressure from the public, the government, and the newspapers. Every day, fresh headlines demanded answers, while fear continued to spread throughout London's East End. Detectives worked around the clock, determined to identify the mysterious killer before he struck again. Hundreds of witnesses were interviewed. Residents, shopkeepers, laborers, and anyone who might have seen something unusual were questioned. Even the smallest detail was carefully recorded in the hope that it would provide a breakthrough. Police officers carried out house-to-house inquiries across Whitechapel. They searched lodging houses, questioned landlords, spoke with local workers, and followed countless reports from members of the public. But investigating crime in 1888 was very different from today. Detectives had no DNA analysis. There was no fingerprint database. There were no security cameras watching the streets. There were no mobile phones or digital records to trace a suspect's movements. Investigators had to rely almost entirely on witness statements, handwritten notes, and the physical evidence available at each crime scene. Unfortunately, many witnesses gave conflicting accounts, while rumors spread rapidly through Whitechapel. Newspapers often published speculation alongside confirmed facts, making the investigation even more challenging. Despite weeks of relentless work, every promising lead eventually reached a dead end. The killer appeared to know the streets of Whitechapel exceptionally well, vanishing into the maze of narrow alleyways before police could arrive. With every passing day, frustration grew. Detectives followed every lead, every witness was questioned, every clue was examined, yet somehow, the killer always seemed one step ahead. As the investigation intensified, another mystery began to unfold. The police and newspapers started receiving anonymous letters from people claiming to be the killer. Most were dismissed as cruel hoaxes, but a few would become famous around the world. One of the best known was the "Dear Boss" letter, which arrived at the Central News Agency in September 1888. The writer mocked the police, claimed responsibility for the crimes, and suggested that the investigation would never catch him. At the end of the letter was a signature the world had never seen before. Jack the Ripper. Those 3 words would soon appear in newspapers across Britain and beyond, transforming an unidentified killer into one of history's most infamous criminal figures. A few weeks later, another letter arrived. It became known as the "From Hell" letter because of the chilling words written at the beginning. Unlike many of the other letters, this one contained details that sparked intense debate among investigators and historians. Even today, opinions remain divided over its significance. Over the years, experts have examined the handwriting, language, and timing of these letters. Some believe at least one may have come from the killer. Others argue they were written by journalists or members of the public hoping to gain attention during a case that dominated newspaper headlines. The truth has never been established. What is certain is that one signature changed history forever: Jack the Ripper. Whether those words were written by the real killer or by a hoaxer, they created a name that has endured for more than 135 years. Even today, it is that name, not the killer's true identity, that the world remembers. More than a century has passed since the Whitechapel murders, yet one question continues to puzzle historians and investigators alike. Who was Jack the Ripper? Over the decades, countless theories have emerged. Researchers have examined police records, witness statements, newspaper reports, and historical documents in an attempt to identify the mysterious killer. Numerous individuals have been suggested as possible suspects. Some lived in Whitechapel, others were linked to the area through work or circumstance. Each new theory has sparked fresh debate, attracting both supporters and critics. Advances in forensic science have also led modern researchers to re-examine evidence connected to the case. While some studies have pointed toward particular individuals, historians continue to disagree about what the available evidence can actually prove. No suspect has ever been conclusively identified as Jack the Ripper. More than 135 years later, the case remains officially unsolved. Perhaps that is why the mystery continues to capture the world's imagination. Every generation asks the same question. Every generation searches for the same answer. Yet the truth remains hidden somewhere in the shadows of Victorian London. More than a century later, theories continue, books continue, debates continue, but certainty remains out of reach. More than 135 years have passed since the Whitechapel murders, yet the mystery of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate people around the world. The case changed criminal investigations forever. It highlighted the challenges faced by Victorian police officers and demonstrated the need for more advanced investigative techniques. Although forensic science was still in its early stages, the lessons learned from cases like this would help shape the future of modern policing. The investigation also transformed journalism. Newspapers competed to report every new development, publishing dramatic headlines that captured the public's attention. For one of the first times, a criminal investigation became an international news story, showing the growing influence of the media in shaping public opinion. Over the years, the mystery has inspired countless books, documentaries, films, television series, podcasts, and historical studies. Each generation has revisited the evidence, hoping to answer the question that has remained unanswered since 1888. Historians continue to examine original police records, newspaper archives, witness statements, and newly discovered documents. Advances in technology have allowed researchers to study the case in ways investigators in Victorian London could never have imagined. Yet despite more than a century of research, no definitive answer has ever emerged. Jack the Ripper became one of history's most infamous unidentified criminals. But behind the newspaper headlines, the mystery, and the legends were real people. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. These women were daughters, friends, and members of their community. Their lives were tragically cut short, and they deserve to be remembered not simply as names in a famous case, but as individuals whose stories still matter today. While the identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown, remembering the victims with dignity is perhaps the most important lesson this case leaves behind. More than 135 years have passed. New books are still published. New theories continue to emerge. Historians still search for answers. But one question remains: who was Jack the Ripper? Perhaps history will never reveal the truth. What do you think? Will Jack the Ripper's identity ever be proven? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.